You're awake at 3 in the morning, staring at your bedroom ceiling, and a question pierces your mind like a splinter. What's the point of all this? I'm not talking about occasional insomnia. I'm talking about that sensation that crawls through your chest when you achieve something that was supposed to make you happy, and instead of satisfaction, you find a deeper emptiness. When you finish an important project and instead of celebrating, you wonder if it really matters. When you watch the news and feel like the world is an absurd theater where everyone acts roles they don't understand. If this moment feels familiar, if you felt that life is a cosmic joke without humor, then you need to hear this. You're not a nihilist. You're a seeker of authentic meaning in a world that has specialized in selling counterfeits. Nihilism has become the easy diagnosis of our era. Life has no meaning, we declare with a mixture of adolescent rebellion and adult resignation. But there's a fundamental problem with this self-labeling. The true nihilist doesn't suffer from the lack of meaning. The authentic nihilist, as Nietzsche described, is one who has completely transcended the need for purpose. They don't wake up at 3 in the morning anguished by the futility of existence, because for them, that futility is simply a neutral fact, like the law of gravity. It doesn't hurt them, doesn't disturb them, doesn't keep them awake. It simply is, but you do suffer. You do feel that pang in your chest when contemplating the possibility that nothing really matters. And that suffering, paradoxically, is the clearest proof that you're not a nihilist. It's evidence that your soul is alive, that your deepest being rejects the idea of a universe without purpose. What you experience isn't nihilism. It's the pain of authentic meaning struggling to be born in a world that constantly offers you cheap substitutes. The difference is crucial. The genuine nihilist has killed within themselves the capacity to long for meaning. You, on the other hand, are hungry for it. But we live in an era where the spiritual food offered to us is so processed, so adulterated with preservatives and artificial coloring, that our existential organism instinctively rejects it. And when we reject that false food, when our being says no to the prefabricated purposes that society sells us, we interpret that rejection as nihilism, when in reality it's the opposite. It's the cry of a soul that knows the difference between the authentic and the false. Think about the meanings you've been offered throughout your life. Study to get a good job, work to buy a house, get married and have children, accumulate experiences, travel, consume, be successful, influential, admired. Each of these propositions carries the implicit promise that, by fulfilling it, you'll find that something you're looking for. But there's a problem. These goals are external to your essential nature. They're like suits you put on hoping they'll define who you are. But they never quite fit right because they weren't designed specifically for you. Viktor Frankl, Holocaust survivor and creator of logotherapy, observed something extraordinary in the concentration camps. The people who survived weren't necessarily the physically strongest, but those who found some meaning in their suffering. Some found it in the hope of reuniting with loved ones, others in the possibility of telling their story, others in the simple dignity of keeping their humanity intact. But what was crucial was that this meaning sprouted from within, from their deepest core, not from an externally imposed formula. This observation leads us to the first pillar of your transformation, recognizing that authentic meaning can never be given from outside, but must be discovered from within. It's like the difference between an artificial flower and a real one. The artificial one may seem perfect, maintains its bright colors indefinitely, never wilts. But it lacks life, real fragrance, the imperfect and vulnerable beauty of something that grows from its own roots. Prefabricated meanings are artificial flowers. They may look attractive in life's shop window, but when you take them home and live with them day by day, you discover they don't nourish your soul. Your soul knows the difference. That's why it rejects purposes that don't resonate with your deepest nature. That's why you feel that emptiness when you reach goals that were supposed to complete you. It's not that you're hard to satisfy. It's that you have a very finely tuned authenticity detector. The problem is, we've learned to interpret our internal detector's no's as negativity or nihilism, when in reality, they're the most reliable compass we have for finding our true north. Here we arrive at the second pillar, understanding that your apparent nihilism is, in reality, a process of sacred discrimination. It's your essential being separating wheat from chaff, the real from the illusory, the nutritious from the toxic. Every time you feel that nothing makes sense, what's really happening is your soul telling you, this that you're offering me is not my food. My hunger is of another kind. Carl Jung spoke of the individuation process as the journey toward becoming who we really are, beyond social expectations and the masks we wear. This process inevitably includes a phase he called the dark night of the soul, a period of disenchantment and apparent emptiness where old certainties collapse before new ones emerge. If you're experiencing that sensation that nothing matters, you're very likely in that sacred phase of decomposition that precedes all authentic rebirth. Modern society has lost the initiation rituals that, in ancestral cultures, help people navigate these periods of existential transition. In those cultures, when someone entered a crisis of meaning, the community recognized they were going through a symbolic death necessary for the birth of their most authentic self. There were elders, shamans, spiritual guides who accompanied the process, who knew that the apparent chaos was the prelude to higher order. We, on the other hand, have medicalized and pathologized these natural processes. When someone enters the dark night of the soul, we tell them they're depressed, we offer antidepressants, we suggest they think positive or seek professional help to return to normalcy. But what if that normalcy we want to rescue you from was precisely the problem? What if your discomfort isn't an illness but a symptom of spiritual health, the sign that your soul refuses to settle for substitutes? The third pillar of your transformation is recognizing that your search for authentic meaning is an act of sacred rebellion against a world that has commercialized life's purpose. We live in an era where everything has been turned into a product, including the meaning of existence. They sell you Find Your Purpose as if it were an online course. They promise you Discover Your Passion as if it were a mobile app. They offer you Live Your Best Life as if it were a travel package. But authentic meaning isn't bought, isn't consumed, isn't obtained by following a 5-step tutorial. It's discovered in silence, revealed in contemplation, emerges from the depth of your being when you stop looking outside and begin listening within. It's an organic process, like the growth of a tree, slow, sometimes imperceptible, but deep and lasting. Here's where many make a fundamental mistake. They confuse meaning with purpose, and purpose with goal. Meaning isn't something you achieve. It's something you recognize. It's not a destination you arrive at. It's a quality of presence you cultivate. It's not in the future waiting for you. It's here now, available in every conscious moment, in every act performed with full attention. Rainer Maria Rilke, in his Letters to a Young Poet, wrote something extraordinary. Perhaps all the dragons in our lives are princesses who are only waiting to see us act, just once, with beauty and courage. Your apparent nihilism could be that dragon, that terrifying experience that, when you embrace it with courage, reveals itself as the princess who will lead you toward your deepest meaning. Because here's the transformative insight that changes everything. You don't seek meaning to fill a void. You seek meaning to remember who you really are. The emptiness you feel isn't an absence. It's a sacred space, like the silence between notes that makes music possible. Without that silence, there would only be noise. Without that apparent emptiness, there would only be the deafening noise of a life full of activities without soul. Your nihilism is, in reality, your soul-cleaning house. It's removing all the furniture that doesn't really belong there, all the false decorations, all the borrowed purposes, to make space for what really matters. It's a painful process because we've confused those decorations with our identity. When we remove them, we temporarily feel naked, empty, with nothing to define us. But that nakedness is the prelude to authenticity. Think of a house that has been inhabited by different tenants for years. Each has left their mark. Furniture that doesn't match, clashing wall colors, decorations that reflect foreign tastes. When you finally have the opportunity to make that house truly yours, the first thing you must do is empty it completely. Only then can you see its real architecture, its authentic potential, its natural beauty. Only then can you begin to fill it with things that truly resonate with you. Your soul is doing exactly that. It has been inhabited by purposes that aren't yours, by meanings that were imposed on you, by expectations you never really chose. And now it's saying, enough. It's time to discover what is really mine. The emptying process hurts because we've confused those borrowed elements with ourselves. But it's necessary so you can recognize what genuinely belongs to you. The fourth pillar of your transformation is understanding that authentic meaning isn't something you construct. It's something you discover. It already exists within you, like a seed that has been waiting for the right conditions to germinate. Those conditions aren't comfort and ease. They're honesty and courage. The honesty to recognize what truly nourishes you and what exhausts you. The courage to act according to that honesty, even when the world pressures you to do otherwise. Every time you felt a moment of genuine fulfillment, of deep connection with life, of feeling you're exactly where you should be, you've touched your authentic meaning. It might have been while contemplating a sunset, while having a deep conversation with someone beloved, while creating something with your hands, while helping someone in need, while simply being present in an ordinary moment that became extraordinary through your attention. Those moments aren't random. They're clues. Breadcrumbs your soul leaves to show you the way home. The problem is, we've learned to dismiss those moments as unimportant or unproductive. We've been conditioned to believe that meaning must be grandiose, ambitious, public, measurable. But the truth is that authentic meaning is intimate, subtle, often silent. It's like a flower's perfume. It doesn't need to shout to be perceived by those who know how to breathe deeply. Here we arrive at the fifth and final pillar, recognizing that your authentic meaning doesn't need external validation to be real. It doesn't need to be understood by others, applauded by crowds, or converted into a successful career. Its validity doesn't depend on its social utility or economic profitability. Its validity depends solely on its resonance with your deepest nature. This is perhaps the most difficult lesson to assimilate in an era obsessed with recognition and visibility. We've been programmed to believe something is only valuable if others recognize it as such. But authentic meaning operates under completely different logic. It's like an underground river that feeds all the surface vegetation without needing to be seen. Its power lies in its invisibility, in its capacity to nourish from the depths without seeking credit or recognition. When you begin to live from your authentic meaning, something magical happens. You stop needing life to give you reasons to exist because you become a living reason. You don't seek purpose because you become embodied purpose. You don't ask why you're here because your very presence becomes the answer. This doesn't mean life becomes easy or that all problems disappear. It means you develop a different relationship with difficulty. Trials remain trials, but now you see them as opportunities to deepen your authenticity instead of evidence that life isn't worth living. Suffering remains suffering, but now it can become compost for the growth of your wisdom instead of evidence of the futility of everything. The path toward your authentic meaning requires a daily practice of radical honesty with yourself. It requires asking yourself moment by moment, is this thing I'm doing, feeling, thinking, choosing, aligned with who I really am? Not with who you should be, not with who others expect you to be, but with who you genuinely are in the core of your being. This practice of radical honesty is like training a muscle that has been atrophied for years by social conditioning. At first it hurts. At first it's difficult even to identify what is authentic and what is performance. But gradually, as you distinguish between your soul's voice and the noise of external expectations, you begin to develop what we could call existential intuition, the capacity to know instantaneously what brings you closer to your truth and what takes you away from it. This existential intuition becomes your internal compass. You don't need external maps. You don't need gurus to tell you which path to take. You don't need universal formulas for happiness. You have within you an authenticity detector so sophisticated it can distinguish between the true and the false with more precision than any external technology. The process of reconnecting with your authentic meaning also requires learning to inhabit mystery. Our era is obsessed with having answers, with solving puzzles, with controlling outcomes. But authentic meaning often emerges from the space between certainties, from the unexplored territory between what we know and what we sense. It requires developing tolerance for ambiguity, comfort with the unknown, faith in processes we can't completely control. Think about how a plant grows. You can provide water, light, nutrients, but you can't control exactly how each leaf, each branch, each flower will develop. There's an inherent intelligence in the seed that knows how to unfold, but that unfolding requires time, patience, and trust in processes that are beyond our direct control. Your authentic meaning operates similarly. You can create the conditions for it to emerge, but you can't force its manifestation. One of those conditions is sacred solitude. Not the solitude of isolation or disconnection, but the solitude of deep connection with yourself. In an era of constant distraction, perpetual noise, permanent superficial connection, finding spaces of genuine silence has become a revolutionary act. In that silence, in that sacred solitude, you can hear the subtle voice of your soul that has been trying to speak to you all your life, but has been drowned out by civilization's noise. Another condition is the practice of full presence. Authentic meaning doesn't live in the past or future. It lives in this moment, here and now. But we've been conditioned to constantly live in other times, lamenting the past, anticipating the future, planning, remembering, fantasizing, everything except being really present to what's happening in this instant. When you begin to practice full presence, you discover something extraordinary. Each moment contains seeds of meaning, but they can only be perceived by consciousness that is completely here, completely now. It's like tuning a radio station. If your internal dial is constantly moving between different frequencies, you'll only hear static. But when you establish yourself on a specific frequency, music emerges with crystalline clarity. Authentic meaning also requires reconciling with your own mortality. Awareness that your time here is limited shouldn't fill you with desperation, but with sacred urgency. Each passing day is a day that won't return. Each moment is unique and unrepeatable. Each choice has the weight of finitude. This awareness of mortality, far from being morbid, is what gives value and meaning to each instant of life. When you truly integrate the fact that your existence is temporary, superficial things lose their power over you, and genuinely important things emerge with luminous clarity. Death isn't the enemy of meaning, it's its best teacher. It teaches you to value what really matters, not to postpone authenticity, not to waste time living the life others expect you to live. Finally, finding your authentic meaning requires developing what Viktor Frankl called the will to meaning, the unbreakable determination to find sense even in the most difficult circumstances. This will isn't blind optimism or superficial positive thinking. It's something much deeper, the conviction that human existence has an inherent dignity that transcends external circumstances. This will to meaning allows you to transform any experience, however painful, into material for the growth of your wisdom and compassion. It's not that you seek suffering or romanticize difficulty, but that you develop the inner alchemy necessary to convert the lead of adversity into the gold of deep understanding. When you live from this will to meaning, your very presence becomes a gift to the world. You don't need to do great things to matter. Your simple, authentic existence is already an invaluable contribution. As Martha Graham said, there is a vitality, a life force, an energy, a quickening that is translated through you into action. And because there is only one of you in all time, this expression is unique. Your search for authentic meaning isn't nihilism. It's the most sacred impulse that exists. It's your soul remembering its original purpose, to be a unique expression of universal consciousness, a singular instrument in the cosmic symphony, a note that no one else can play. When you recognize this, when you embrace your search as the sacred thing it really is, something transforms within you. The emptiness you felt doesn't disappear, but reveals itself as the sacred space where your authentic meaning can finally take root and flourish. You're not a nihilist. You're a seeker of the sacred in a world that has forgotten what is truly sacred. Your apparent hopelessness is, in reality, hope in disguise. Your apparent emptiness is, in reality, sacred space waiting to be inhabited by your deepest truth. Your apparent lack of meaning is, in reality, your soul's refusal to settle for false meanings. And in that refusal, in that incessant search, in that insatiable hunger for something authentic, you're already living your deepest meaning, being someone who won't settle for less than truth, someone who keeps the flame of authenticity burning in a world that often prefers the shadows of comfort. If these words have resonated somewhere deep in your being, if they've touched that part of you that knew your search was sacred even when the world told you otherwise, share this message with someone who is also navigating their own dark night of the soul. Sometimes all we need is to know we're not alone in our search for the authentic, that others have also felt that emptiness that isn't emptiness but sacred space waiting to be inhabited by truth.